Okay, good morning and welcome to our very first panel. I would always say our panelist doesn't need any introduction, but I will have them give a brief later on. I'm Raj, I'm the editor at MYStartup, and joining me this morning is Charmaine Wong, co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of Cult Creative, and Adlin Yusman, Managing Director of Endeavour Malaysia. As you can see, the title is all about PR today. There's a very common saying among my peers, in this age especially, right? Everything you do or say is public relations. It's not just about media coverage. It's whatever you tweet, whatever you say, you know, the Twitter CEO could just tweet something and the share prices will go up, right? So we want to explore what it takes when you need PR, what's the difference between marketing and PR. So before we dive deeper, I'm going to have my panelists introduce themselves first. Perhaps Adlin.
I thought I would let the fairer, of us start first. Since we terbalik, I'm supposed to be sitting the other side. Okay, so just in case. So Charmaine, you go first. I would like to have entrepreneurs go first because we're here to support entrepreneurs. So please.
Thank you. Hi guys, my name is Charmaine. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cult Creative. My life before Cult Creative, I actually was in the PR industry. I started out in PR. I worked in Harper's Bazaar, I did publishing, and then I had an event company as well. After that, we launched Cult Creative during the pandemic because we realized that creative people need help, especially when it comes to work and also networking and upskilling opportunities. So I truly understand the importance of PR. And like you said, PR it sounds daunting, right? But actually, it really is storytelling your brand and your impact and what you want to solve, like what Ash said. So Cult Creative right now is a creator economy platform where we connect brands and creators to help them earn money and also get more brand deals as well. Over to you.
So, morning everyone. I assume you all got your Zeus coffee. Ash, I don't enjoy the fact that I had to sign up. So for all the options, I said Ash, Norm, I just put your names lah. So I spoiled the form for you guys. So heckler, I'm heckling on stage, bro, right? So when I'm on stage, I apologize. I tend to moderate the moderator. I think some of them will know. So I'm sorry up in front. You all know me very well. I do this. How many of you are from Penang? Huh? Oh, mostly from KL, is it? Well, you came all the way for Ash. Wow, Ash, huge round of applause, bro. So I'm supposed to introduce myself. So I apologize. I misbehave all the time. So Endeavour is an entrepreneur support organization in 44 countries. Our main purpose, we are a non-profit. We are here to make sure that we support the best, most high-impact entrepreneurs to create a virtuous cycle in the economy. So the people that we've been supporting are mainly household names in Malaysia. We've been around for 10 years, and we're doing a huge 10-year celebration this year. Some of you will obviously be invited. We would love to have all of you. And I think some of the names that we have been supporting are Kasem, Farm Fresh, Fashion Valet, T-Life, which obviously just joined us last month when they got selected. So Brian Liu, one of the most humblest entrepreneurs I've met in my life. Despite building a business that's $1 billion ringgit a year revenue, right? Our homegrown tea company, right? So I think what we do see is, to echo what Ash said, we should be the ones setting the pace forward. Malaysia has very ample amounts of talent, which I guess you'll highlight later, I guess in some ways. We need more storytelling, which is the PR side, which is today's topic. But most importantly, some of the unicorns around the region either have Malaysian founders or are Malaysians that moved out. So PetSnap, $1 billion out of the US, Malaysian founder. Obviously Anthony, which is Grab. We've got Rainforest out of Singapore, which is the same size as, say, RPG, Malaysian founders as well. So I think there's a lot of Malaysians that we don't really highlight. And I think thank you to MYStartup and Cradle for allowing this, for us to share stories and for you all to be inspired. So bloody hell, it took 10 minutes. Sorry, guys. Back to you, man.
Thank you, Adlin. I think I speak to founders quite often, and the first thing, even with startups as big as La Pasa, right? The first question they'll have is, do I really need PR? Do I really need to market? Why can't I rely on word of mouth? I'm too busy making sure my staff has, salary to take home by the end of the month. I think the first question I would like to pose is to Charmaine, right? You're a founder, and you've been in the PR side, so I think you know the struggles we go through convincing people to take up. At what stage, has at Cult Creative's growth, did you realize that did I need to start PR from the very beginning, or when I have some funds and then I'm ready to invest in some PR to expand and to talk about it? What was your experience like?
That's a good question. So I came from the agency background, right? So we all have this fear that agencies are expensive. And I think people or even startups or companies think that you have to spend a lot of money to get the word out there. And I say you have to get the word out there from the very beginning. You have to storytell your mission. And of course, you have to be very, very clear with your values, your mission, who you're serving, what sort of impact you're creating. And there's so many ways to create impact now without using an agency. There is AI, there is, I can give you a list of AI tools that are free as well. There's Daydream AI, there's, Jasper, Copy AI. There's so many good AI tools out there that you can already input your sort of key points like your values, your mission, objective, who is your target segment, and then start storytelling from there. So storytelling doesn't need to come from a press release as well, guys. You can do content now, like you said, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, right? The point is you need to start storytelling from day one, your mission, and be very clear with the impact and the customer and the pain point you're trying to solve. So it starts from day one.
Now, before I jump into admin, right, what went right when you applied your PR experience in your business, and what went wrong that founders could learn from your key learnings?
It's a good question. What went right? What went right is, I guess, when you start storytelling in the beginning, you start also, as a founder, you're just A/B testing, right? You're A/B testing your customer. Is this customer A or is it customer B? So with PR, you're actually attracting, the end goal is to attract, PR, you think it's for optics, for the mass, right? But ultimately, you want to attract customers that you're serving. So with PR, of course, you can attract the right customers and hopefully retain the right customers. But I think the pitfalls of PR is also you start over-believing, and it becomes like, oh, I hyped myself up too much. You can easily start saying like, oh, I am the #1 creator platform, when actually, in reality, you're still at a very early stage. So I think people really need to be real with what stage they're in. And at the end of the day, you have to be authentic, because consumers and customers now really smell that from far. So it's all about being authentic.
Adlin, you speak to founders of different levels of companies, right? Whether it's small, even as big as VV Yusuf and all that, right? And you have been a co-founder yourself, right? So when these founders come to you and they ask you for guidance, right? They've got these funds. Do I invest in PR and marketing? And some of them may not know the difference between marketing and PR. What do you tell them? Like, do you only invest at this stage, or what can you do? What's your guidance to these young founders who often have these dilemmas?
I think I saw a chat somewhere. I don't know whether it's one of the major sort of Facebook groups that we're in terms of, we spend a lot of, depending on what kind of companies you build. If it's a tech company, obviously a lot of your investment goes into building the technology. But some of these guys have gone into just building technology and left zero money for marketing or PR, okay? In some ways, I know they're not the same, and there's no such thing as bad PR, I suppose, right? But if you go out and build a product that no one knows, it's a complete waste of time. So if you've done it for a year and no one knows, it's fine. If you're building it for 10 years and no one knows, you've completely wasted your time, right? So have a real barometer of measurement. If you're trying to build something that doesn't get, I guess, mass adoption, if you're not reaching an inflection point that says, hey, my product market fit is here, give yourself a fair amount of time. Different products have different stages of growth. But at the same time, wonder, when do you turn on the taps to get the product out? Now, PR is in any which way. You can get PR for free, like what I guess Charmaine said. If you're a first-time founder, and I think to be fair, because we're looking at a bit more early-stage audience here, can I get a show of hands? How many of you have raised seed money? Only 2. Where's Swipey? You've raised more than once, right? So, anybody raised beyond seed? Series A? Series A. Raising Series A, okay. So, different growth stages require different PR. At seed, I think there's a lot of effort required for you to get your brand out. What are you selling? Why is it for me? But then there's a very thin line between spending money for PR to get customers and then burning cash to subsidize your customers. And that's still part of marketing, right? So if you don't know what is the reason for your existence, whether or not you're trying to find product market fit, whether it's turning on the taps to then grow your GMV, or whether it's in, I guess, finding out markets you're launching, say, from Malaysia to Indonesia, there are different levers that you need to use. But PR, which stands, I guess, in my head, above that, meaning that if your brand is, say, useful. Example, if you're a first-time founder, nobody knows who you are, and that's not a bad thing. Tomorrow, say, Eric Cheng starts another startup that's not Kasim, everybody in this room will know that Eric started a new startup. He's a serial founder. Similarly, the same goes for everybody else who's done a startup, built his name. So they do PR for free. We all, whoever else has not done a startup, you've got to either pay through it or call some favors and get your name up. So Vulcan Post is good. They do a lot of coverage for free for new startups. There's a lot of outlets for you to get your name out for free. Do it first, to echo what Charmaine said. Don't pay if you can or cannot, or pay something you can afford. Charmaine does good servicing. Sorry, my watch fell. Her affordable. I'm gonna try your service as well. So there are options. So don't go straight to Facebook. Don't go straight to Instagram. Find a way to get it done quickly, cheaply, and I guess equitably for whatever you are in terms of your fundraising round. So that's, my thought.
Can I add on to Adlin's point? I think one more thing that founders forget is you can actually be your own PR machine. Like you keep thinking that your brand and your company need to put yourself out, but actually you can start becoming an expert, a leader, and you start putting yourself into speaking opportunities, panel opportunities like this. So to sort of position yourself, then people trust you. At the end of the day, you want your customers to trust you. And with that, you can start building stories around it.
Thank you. I think one thing that I wanted to plug before we move on is media coverage. When I was a reporter, I would often find startups just texting me 1 week before you start raising funds and say, hey, can you just get me in the Star, The Age, Business Today? And obviously I would say, I think your VC is not blind. They're going to be able to read the timestamp and know you just did it a week before, right? But how has media coverage played a role in Cult Creative's expansion, getting the name out there? How has it complemented your journey? Is it important? Do you think they should at least try to get a few media coverages out there?
For me, I think it's also an advantage to have PR background. So to be honest, now that I'm a founder, I think media coverage is vanity metrics. I'm sorry. Because at the end of the day, I actually want partnerships. I want customers, right? So a good example was when we launched in Indonesia in March. We just did a very simple release, but my end game was to target Indonesian agencies to get their eyeballs. I had a strategy in place, and I think people think that media coverage means you just write a bunch of fluff and then hopefully it gets published. But actually, if you need a strategy, you need to attract who you're trying to target. So my end game was to attract Indonesian agencies, Indonesian creators, and then so it was sort of designed that way to attract. So that you have to have an end game and also an objective. But I think a lot of startups founders think that media coverage is just, it's vanity, to be honest. What is the end goal?
Thank you. Adlin, on this matter, I've got a two-part question. Are you impressed with media coverages when startups come to you and say, hey, look, I've been featured in The Edge?
So, how do I put it? I'm trying to mince my word and behave because out of respect to Ash, obviously. No, go, okay. Nobody gives right? I don't care if you got covered on The Edge, you're on the cover of Fortune 500 if you're still burning cash. How many of these guys who blew up last year, who were billionaires on Forbes, what's that, the crypto company that blew up, raised billions of dollars, was on the cover of Forbes, Fortune, lost billions of dollars. So to agree to what obviously Charmaine said nicely, it doesn't matter. Because if you're not building a business that is actually creating value for your users and value and returns for your investors, you're not worth right? That's the truth. So if you're on the edge, good lah, right? If you're on the edge because you exited, for example, T-Life goes public next year for $7 billion US. Okay, fine. Because you're creating value for your investors and you're creating buzz for Malaysia. Wow, this guy selling bubble tea is worth billions of dollars. That's great for the country. But if you're doing it saying, I raised $1 million and I went onto the press and I'm covered and I'm proud of it, to be fair, 10 years ago I was, because I was young and I was an idiot, right? But the truth is, VCs are also for more, right? Wow, you're on all this tech in Asia, TechCrunch, wow, you raise millions of dollars, then they'll call you. So yes, while it's vanity metrics in terms of user acquisition, which is exactly what Charmaine said, how many VCs are there in the audience? Tak ada. VCs will fall hook, line and sinker for this. Why? Because if TechCrunch covers them, Tech in Asia covers them, they must be somebody because all of a sudden all these guys are loving this startup, right? So there is value. So it's not completely drinking your Kool-Aid if you do get some value out of it through different funnels. My investment funnel, press, works. Generating interest, works. Otherwise, no one's going to call the edge and says, okay, my quarterly earnings grew 50% and then your stock price shoots up 5%. There is value. but for that side. But for your customers, unless of course you're doing a huge consumer marketing, for example, business, then yes. But otherwise, it doesn't matter to me at Endeavour. So you're covered. Great. What have you done?
But what about your friends? You know, over the years, you've been in the ecosystem for some time, right? When VCs,
Thanks for calling me old, but okay.
I think when VCs see these media coverages over the years, how much has it influenced their decision to put the money in? Let's say back in 2021 to 2023, you know, do they share with you and say, look, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't influence my decision as much as it did before? You know, what are the thoughts and movements in the ecosystem when it comes to media coverage?
If you're an investor, you will plug yourself into the ecosystem in any which way possible for deal flow. Media is the easiest deal flow engine because you'll read, give it a call, right? If you're an investor in a particularly specific market, say agri-tech, or for example fintech, then obviously you want to be subscribed and you want to know so that at least you're not going to be late to the game, because again, FOMO is real. If you're late to the game, you're not going to get good valuations, you're not going to get good exits. Now, is that the be-all, end-all for them? I mean, is that the only metric they're going to say if you're covered on Forbes, does that make you a rock star? Yes and no. They still have to do their duty, right? But the real impetus to an investor putting money into your company, beyond you just being on the cover of Tatler magazine, right, is the fact that they will look at what their compatriots in the space are talking about you. Tatler can say you're a rock star, but if 15 of their VC colleagues or friends in the industry are saying that no, their business is which interestingly enough was what happened in the early, say, I guess, 2019, 2020, when WeWork busted because everybody was saying SoftBank was overpaying. And they're wondering what the hell is wrong with Masa. Is there something he's seeing that we are not, or is he drinking their Kool-Aid, right? So it's only a matter of time before something collapses. That's one. Second, the big PE firm called Abraj. Have you all heard of Abraj? So it's a huge PE firm out of the US, but run by a Pakistani named Arif Naqvi. So if you guys love books, read the book. It's called Keyman. It's amazing. He conned Bill Gates $2 billion. Right? He's now going to jail, I hope. But the point is, it's about the idea of knowing exactly. I mean, the problem is you're only knowledgeable as much as information given to you. So if your compatriots around you are telling you, and 9 out of 10 are saying this startup is bad, odds are it's probably bad.
Thank you. I think the next question, it goes for the both of you as well, right? Do I PR myself as a founder, or do I PR the brand, right? In some cases, we have seen in the US, you know, the founders get glorified, right? And then at the end, there's nothing coming out from the brand. But you know, you get your face plastered over Fortune, Forbes, Tatler. Even in this region, Gen T lists out, you know, founders more than the brand's name, right? Does the founder PR himself or PR the brand first, or do we do both simultaneously? What are your thoughts on that, Charmaine?
I think in the beginning, you have to be a combo, a buy one, free one. I'm Cult Creative, I'm Charmaine Wong, Cult Creative, right? But eventually, like I said, the brand, and depending on different stages, right? So in the beginning, it was Charmaine Wong, Cult Creative, and this is what I want to do for the creative industry. This is what I want to do for the Malaysian economy, blah, blah, blah. But when we started going into Indonesia, that was when what Cult Creative wants to do for regional, right? And then I started separating myself as an expert in this industry. So I think eventually you should start profiling yourself as well. And I think I wanted to add on to Adlin's point, right? Previously, we talked about media coverage was for consumers, but I think when we started pitching a lot, they always say, like, we want to know the founder, your past experience, your team, or what have you done. So profiling yourself as a founder and your expertise and what you want to say and what you want to do, what sort of impact is very important. So definitely, depending on what stage again, then you start profiling yourself and your business separately, because the business will keep growing. But you as an expert, you just got to keep on harping the same messaging, the same story or impact.
But do you think over-profiling yourself would overshadow the business by any chance?
Then maybe this person is not really trying to grow his business, right? Maybe it's a different motive.
What are your thoughts on this, Adlin? Do I profile myself first, or do I profile the business first?
So I'm going to have a contrarian view because it's more fun to be combative on stage, right? How many of you know Mark Zuckerberg's co-founder? What's his name? Not yours, his co-founder. You don't know his name. So you don't know lah. Right? How many of you know Eric Cheng's co-founder? Don't know. Anthony Tan's co-founder? Holy shit, see? So the point is, it doesn't matter what you want to, what's the guy who built WeWork? I know his wife, Rebecca, which happens to be his co-founder.
Adam Newman.
Adam Newman, right? Every single one of these founders, they profile themselves as the forefront of the business because it is inseparable, other than the fact that Mark Zuck has a golden share, is inseparable from the brand of the business as they're building it because the VCs are betting it, or the investors are betting on the founder itself. It is a key man risk, no doubt about it. But there is no other way for you to distinguish between the person, like Jeff Bezos. Who knows the current CEO of Amazon? No one knows the current CEO of Amazon. No one knows any of these big companies. If I were to tell you, you won't remember. I do, but to be fair, because I'm in the space and I know these guys. Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn. Who's his co-founder? Doesn't matter. Because he's the main guy at the front raising money, putting LinkedIn in front, putting all the brands and all the sort of, I guess, marketing power behind a single individual that is actually pushing the brand forward, and it creates value for the brand. And I'll go down even more down to Malaysia. How many of you here know Joel Neo? Faith, right? Okay. What about his co-founders? Right? Let me tell you who are the co-founders of Faith. Some of you may not even know. Chen Chao, of course, some of you will know. No. Rafiq Razali, CEO of Mida Prima, was a co-founder. Did you know that, right? Because it was only Joel in front all the time. On stage, talking, meeting investors. So my point is simple. You do what you can as a founder. If you are a superstar, rockstar founder, use your star power to draw markets, investment money, and I guess the ability to sustain the brand moving forward without paying money for it.
But what if a startup has more than one founder, co-founders? I mean, you had 3, obviously, and I think the people in the ecosystem knew all 3 of you. But how do you make a decision where perhaps we can put one person up front? Because I've seen some startups come up with 5 co-founders, and then the moment we ask them the question, who's going to come up front, and then there's a whole different dilemma. But how would you go about it? How did the decision come at maybe we should put this one person up front first?
CEO does it.
Would there be any conflicts? Did you have any conflicts, or was it a smooth decision making?
I think for us, we knew our strengths, and when we started Cult Creative, it was from my vision, and I brought them on board. And Lina came with the content community angle. Manisha was very passionate about the product side of things. So it became quite natural that I was the one that took the center stage.
Aline, what about you? Not all CEOs are going to be very good at talking up front, right? But the CMO might be the better one up front, who knows the product in and out, who knows how to describe it. How would you advise startups to pick that one person or co-founder to be the one to put the face up front?
If you're not comfortable talking to the public, don't be CEO. Don't yourself, don't waste the time, and don't waste your co-founder's time. Because if you're CEO, you are the one talking to investors because they only want to talk to you. You're going to be the one on stage talking to everybody in the audience. You're going to be the one having, the buck stops with you, right? So there are companies, and this is not a hard and fast rule, that the CEOs will change because they realize, hey, I'm an operator. Then be the chief operating officer. I'm a person who likes numbers. Be the chief financial officer. I like doing marketing. I can talk. Maybe you can be CMO or CEO, but if you cannot handle a board, as CEO, you are the last bastion when the board has issues. You are essentially speaking to them. So you have to handle the serious stuff, which is, well, the harder ones, right? The hard things about hard things, another book that you all should read. Handling the press, handling your employees. So if you want to be CEO thinking it's only just sitting on stage, talk yaya papaya stuff, don't waste time. Because there's a lot of shit you got to do, and at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you can sleep at night, and then make sure that you get paid last. So don't even pretend that you're CEO if you don't have all this in your list.
Thank you. I have one more question before we open the floor. Times change, and times rapidly change, obviously, right? How important is PR? And do founders might ask, do I come up with different strategy to adapt for different times? How do I go about it? How do I tackle different challenges with PR? Charmaine, we have obviously went through the pandemic, then we had the ups and downs and all this. How did you utilize PR to adapt to these new changes? Was it as important during difficult times, during changing times, or was it at the back of your thoughts? I had better things to do.
Question. To be honest, PR to me is really just optics, lah, right? And what people think about your brand, and if they see the logo, what do they think of, right? So for me, it used to be PR as press releases, but like I said, it's not anymore. It's about the sort of content you put out, the sort of messaging you want to put out, and that can come from very different forms. Can come from profiling as a founder, can come from content, can come from even using your users to create testimonials, right? At the end of the day, it's about storytelling. So I think there's no traditional way of PR anymore, right? This can be PR as well, attracting the right segments, making them tell the story on your behalf. That itself is storytelling. So I think founders need to be challenged with the way of don't use agencies. There are free tools out there, and you can use your users, UGC campaigns. Use that. I'll give you a good example, right? Circle DNA is so successful because they use UGC as ads. They use real creators, real customers to create content, and the content that Adlin gets on his ads is probably about male gout issues, and I get their female cancer ads because they've identified their customer segments so well that they know how to tune in the sort of content that each person will get. So it goes down to the basics as a startup and a business, right? Understanding your customer segments, understanding the pain points, and what is the messaging you want to use to attract them. So PR to me is storytelling, and you can be very creative now.
Before we jump to Adlin, right? But if a question comes, where do I start?
Got to go down to basics. You got to go back to what is your mission, what is your values, who is your user persona. Sounds so boring, but your customer journey. It goes down to understanding your basics. Then you start from there, and you can start building your brand persona. Meaning, is it fun? Is it accessible like AirAsia? Or is it something a bit more serious or tech like Apple, right? So you got to go down to the basics, and then you start from there. Yeah.
Adlin, what are your thoughts? Utilizing PR in changing times. Was PR important for startups during the pandemic, especially? What are your thoughts on that?
So those are two sides of the coin, right? PR pandemic and PR now, right? So what is the real value of having PR? It is getting your brand and your name out. In the pandemic, I would think that it is slightly easier because everybody's stuck at home looking at their screens. So now you're out and about. Are digital ads still relevant? Yes. Are billboard ads now more relevant than before versus the pandemic because no one was going out, right? So that's PR. I mean, bit marketing as well. But in terms of the purpose, the reason for existence, right? The French way of calling it is for you to be able to distinguish, as you mentioned, choose your markets, right? Choose your audience, and why you're doing it, okay? If you're doing it just for the sake of drinking your own Kool-Aid, every month I must see my face on the edge, don't bother. If you're doing it because you're thinking, I'm about to do a fundraising round in 6 months, I need to get the press out in terms of, as you mentioned, profiling myself. I built the business 10x over the past 3 months. I'm into 3 markets. I've from, I guess, 10 to 20, 30 people, and our growth metrics are all positive. Fine, do it. It has to be a reason you're doing it, not just because, hey, my competitor is doing it, I should do the same thing. Which there's a few key things that as founders you all need to realize. As Malaysians, global VCs look at us as one of the worst storytellers in the regions. We cannot tell stories. That's the real hard truth, one. Second, I think what's also a problem is most of us, and this is a very important distinction, play not to lose. Maybe because our public school system teaches us that way. We're not playing to win. That's a very, very important distinction. You're playing not to lose. Not to lose investor money, not to lose your job because you maluma, have to go back and so go back Chinese New Year, tell your family you got no job. Right? All these are embarrassing points, right? You must play to win. And I think this sort of circles back to that question you have, right? So ultimately, you have to have all these metrics correct and your intent is clear. Why are you doing this? What is the end goal? How much PR is important for you to get what you need, whether it's fundraising, whether it's new markets, whether it's new customers. Have that. Don't just buta go and fire and forget and shoot and hopefully you get all your things done, right? Have a clear focus.
Thank you, Adlin. Thank you, Charmaine. I think, what's made clear today is public relations is not press release, right? There's a lot of facets to public relations. Even panels like this could up your profile. There's plenty more. And like Charmaine said, you don't have to fork out 100,000 per month now immediately to pay for a top PR firm. There's AI, there's Chat GPT types sort of fantastic press release, even better sometimes than half the PR executives I've met. And there's plenty more to explore. I think it's about understanding your basics, right? There are plenty of other questions I have, but I'm going to open the floor to our attendees today. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.
Hi, everyone. Good information, good stuff. Just want to know from a layman perspective. I like what Aline mentioned just now. Any news, any PR is news. Sorry, what's the?
No PR is bad PR.
No PR is bad PR. But I just want to know. And right now, any good news, bad news is still PR. But how do startup owners find a balance between making the company big, making the hype, but at the same time, if you look like right now, TikTok, all that, sometimes the founders is like willing to go to the extreme length in promoting, and to some extent, maybe like giving bad impression to the business. So how do you find balance? So which one should you prevail? Making business or making the hype? Should it be extreme? Should it be like basic? Yeah, without jeopardizing the company. So which should be the, how do you find balance there? Making news, business, yeah, so what? Does it make sense, my question?
There's a lot of things in the question,
Yep.
but the summary is either you do too much or too little. Is that it? Okay, too much, too extreme is the same. Okay, so can I share a case study to answer your question on the extreme side? So one of the most famous Indonesian families, I mean there are 10 or 11 Indonesian families that control the economy of Indonesia. One of them is the Riyadi family, Mokhtar Riyadi, which is the second generation, and then John Riyadi that ran OVO, right? So they own a lot of malls in Indonesia. So when they launched OVO, which ended up being $1 billion exit, which they sold, I can't remember to who, and the father is extremely traditional, so he doesn't look at tech businesses. They wanted to say, on all my malls, all the Matahari malls must use the OVO, it's like a touch and go app, to go in and out, okay? They decide to launch it on a Saturday night, when the crowd is super packed in all their malls. Guess what? Payment failed. The jam was 4 hours long in the mall. People cannot go back at 10 o'clock at night. To the point that they got so upset, they broke the barrier. So the next day, the entire press in Indonesia wrote a damning story how OVO screwed up and how Mokhtar Riyadi and John Riyadi, all this stuff. So when the operating team of OVO went scared out of their minds to present to Mokhtar Riyadi because he's a dangerous, scary man, they were scared they was going to yell, right? But it was his idea, by the way. Mokhtar said, do it for my malls. To which Mokhtar laughed and says, I got free press. I was on the coverage of every single newspaper in Indonesia for nothing. Which in a way, I guess is true. And the downloads for OVO spiked up. Because they're wondering, what the hell is this? Why is every newspaper in Indonesia putting OVO on the front page? So that is negative press to the maximum, talking about one of the largest businesses in Indonesia getting free press. So that's extreme. So to me, don't do a Mokhtar Riyadi, okay? Because we're not Mokhtar Riyadi here, okay? Very few people are. But that is a good example of how they spiked downloads, OVO got known, and in some ways, that's a good, real story of there's no bad press.
Can I add on? Because you mentioned TikTok, right? And I know a lot of founders now kind of want to jump on that trend of like being entertaining, dancing around. But you get views, but what is your message, What were you trying to say? Or were you just trying to get people to watch your team dance, right? So for founders using all this viral content, and there's a fine line between entertainment and also crossing that line and understanding what is your brand about, right? So if you want to think about your content calendar, there should be a mix of dancing videos, entertainment, but you also have to have that storytelling, some customer testimonials to balance out. Like you said, you talk about balance, right? It can't all be TikTok dancing videos. It can't all be somebody eating food and whatnot. So I think there needs to be a balance, but ensure that the messaging and what you're trying to tell is clear in these videos, yeah.